You're a part of the resistance.
Welcome back to the Resistance broadcast. My name is John Hoey. Thank you for hanging out with us today. We have a lot of show to get into, including a deep dive discussion into Rian Johnson's new trilogy and the importance of what will keep the future of Star Wars relevant and not a greatest hits tour. Joining me as always is James Baney and Lacey Gillerin. What's up, squad?
Oh man, I finally got to get to that director and the Jedi. It was a lot of fun. Not as emotional as everybody was making it out to be.
Oh, you're crazy.
I know, that's what everybody says, but I was like really expecting something crazy, and I was like, this is good. I really love this. But it wasn't like hitting me like Interstellar does. You know what I mean? So
Interstellar.
Oh, you guys are like that was my first go-to be emotional by the end of the movie.
Matthew McConaughey crying watching his kids.
That's great.
Yes, that's an awful situation for any person to be in.
You stayed awake that long?
That was the first one I thought. I stayed awake that long. That movie's awesome. Anyway, Lacey, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, but I'm kind of offended that you didn't get emotional in that movie because
I am too.
The scenes where Ryan is dealing with maybe making a mistake. And by the way, I noticed that, is it Ram Bergman? Is always eating cashews. Go back and watch. He is always
cashews are delicious.
Eating cashews.
And they're expensive by the pound.
No, I loved that movie, and you're wrong. That's it. How's it going?
I thought it was great. I just didn't think it was as emotional.
You know how people say, like, I was fighting back tears? I was crying watching Luke when he was crying doing the R2 scene. I was crying with the Leia stuff. I was crying at the end when Luke and when Hamill and Carrie had their last moments. Oh, forget about it. We could do a whole podcast on that documentary, which we should maybe. But Bill Sheehy, who probably cried during that too, is off this week. He took a vacay to the moon of Endor and he's smoking the peace pipe with some Ewoks, but he'll be back on Monday. Guys, we had such a positive response to our show this past Monday that our guests have come back for more. You could find their channel on YouTube. The taping of their live show in downtown LA is out now on their channel, so check that out. They even had George Lucas live in person. I'll let them clarify that for you. They are the self-proclaimed Wayne's World of Star Wars, always reminding us that Star Wars should be fun. Welcome back, Alex Backus and Stephen Ellis, the Black Series Rebels. What's up, guys?
What's going on, guys? I'm Alex.
What's happening, guys? And I'm Steve.
And this is the Resistance broadcast.
Loved it. Now on to interviews.
You want us to do those
reviews?
I love your screen wipes. Is that kind of like an homage to the Star Wars screen wipes? How you have the object just flying across
pretty
the
much
side there?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Rad. Well, it's great to have you guys back. I know all of our listeners loved having you guys with us on Monday. So we are going to talk more in depth about your live show a bit later. But right now, guys, we need to find out if the Force is with us on a bunch of stuff. So Lacey, what is on the docket this week?
So it's that time for The Force is with you. Bill's not here to make some lame joke about Samuel L. Jackson, so I'm just going to get started. So our first topic is, spoiler alert, Luke Skywalker is dead. Yes, it's true. Luke died at the end of The Last Jedi with peace and purpose, becoming one with the Force.
Is this the opening crawl of episode 9?
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead, Lacey. Sorry.
We recently discussed our take on the future of Force ghosts on the show. I am sure whether we want it or not, most of us agree, especially now with Carrie's passing, that we will see Luke Skywalker appear in Episode 9 as a Force ghost. The question is, should he? Luke Skywalker's end was so perfectly and poetically bookended in The Last Jedi that his end should stay right there and he should not return as a Force ghost in Episode 9. Is the Force with you, Steve?
Yeah.
Wait, you're for that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you don't want him to return as a Force ghost then.
Oh, no.
I was like,
sorry.
There's one thing I know about
like,
Steve is
no.
that's
Wait
not
a
how
minute.
he feels.
Whoa. No. Let me back that up.
Force is not with
yeah,
you.
definitely not with me on that one. Definitely not. Luke's coming back as a Force ghost, guys. It's gonna happen, and if it doesn't happen, you're all gonna be tweeting me with your digital tiki torches. But Luke's coming back as a Force ghost, especially now that Miss Carrie is unfortunately no longer with us.
And Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, he's for sure coming back as a Force ghost. I feel like we were picking up right where I left off last week. He's gonna have a sweet battle, baby. Gonna have a sweet battle.
Yeah. Him and the entire Jedi Council, right?
Dude,
Kiadi
Mundi, like they're all just back.
God.
Just like, how rad would it be if Rey like
Kit Fisto with those teeth?
Yeah.
Rey lights that saber up. Kylo's like, I'm gonna destroy you one-on-one, and she goes, I brought friends, and it's just like, broop, and they all just like encompass her, and Kylo's like,
And that's the sound.
Oh,
effect.
it's like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, dude.
Like where the whole army comes back or
and
whatever.
like Kiadi Mundi and Yaddle's just like, Yoda and I aren't talking right now.
Yaddle.
Everybody's trying to ship Kylo and Rey. Everybody knows that the real love story of Star Wars is Yodel, which is Yaddle and Yoda together, baby.
John Williams wrote Across the Stars for
This
them.
podcast is brought to you by Drake's.
Yeah, just like look at a picture of Yaddle, like look up high resolution picture of Yaddle and play Across the Stars, and you'll see it's like doing Dark Side of the Moon to Wizard of Oz. Like the secrets of Star Wars will unlock for you. The Force is not with me. We're getting Force ghosts.
And John.
I don't know how I follow up Yodel, but no, the Force is not with me, but only because Carrie Fisher died. Like I kind of like how I feel about Anakin and Vader. I would be perfectly content if Luke's story just ended the way it ended in The Last Jedi, and I didn't see him again. But I almost feel like we need it now, and him returning isn't as off-putting as them bringing back Anakin because he has a relationship with Rey. So it makes a lot of sense for Luke to return and visit her, and even Kylo Ren. So no, the Force is not with me, but mainly because Carrie's gone.
I would have to say that in storyline, I would say no, we don't need Force Ghost Luke to come back. I don't like the Force Ghost thing. If we talked about that before in the past, I want that kind of to be something that ends. But in real life, actual I'm not stupid, Disney is a business mode, yes, absolutely. You bring back Luke Skywalker. You would be crazy to think they're like,
right.
Well, we're just going to have to force it in there. Like, I'm sorry, it's just got to happen. We're going to have to do it no matter how the story works out, you know? So yeah, definitely you're getting a Force Ghost loose. It's got to be, or something different that we've never seen, you know? Somehow Mark Hamill comes back, but that's the only thing that we have to go on now is Force Ghost. That's our understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with everyone. I think you're going to get Luke in Ep9, and I really want Alex's thing to come true with all these other Force Ghosts. I know, like, the last show, I was against it, and I was like, we don't need Force Ghosts. But now that he said it that way, I want it. Give it
James,
to me. I want
imagine Liam Neeson, baby. Just imagine Liam Neeson. Imagine it, bro.
God.
Like Rey lights up that saber, and like Luke's like, I need my master. And then Obi-Wan pops up and he goes, I'm going to need mine. And then Qui-Gon pops up and he goes, I'm going to need mine. And Yoda pops up. Oh my God. The whole theater explodes. Touchdown, Star Wars.
And then there's a freeze frame jump up high five.
Yeah.
Here's the only way I accept it is that everybody comes back and they still look like themselves, but not as a Force Ghost, more like a Bill Pullman in Casper. Like everybody's kind of like that
version.
kind of a Force
Animated
Ghost.
I love how you always quote Casper on this show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big Devin Sawa fan, huh?
James has Casper on Laserdisc.
That's what I want to see. I want to see Kit Fisto as like kind of like a Casper, you know, maybe a little hint of blue for some reason, not white.
Buddy, Devin Sawa follows me on Twitter. I can connect you guys.
And some Devin
That's
Sawa.
awesome. Yes.
Sweet
Yeah.
brag, bro.
All right, getting into our next one. Some brief comments made by Simon Pegg, why do people open their mouths, suggest that J.J. Abrams had a different plan in mind for Rey's parentage. Though this has been met with a lot of skepticism and doubt, ultimately, the power is in JJ's hands, as the script is done and the fate of Rey's Ancestry.com account lies in the hands of he and Chris Terrio. Let's say JJ twists this up and reveals that what Kylo Ren said was not true, and we find out Rey's parents are significant people in the Star Wars saga. Is the Force with you? Steve.
I'm sorry. Sorry, Simon Pegg said what? No. Yeah. I don't know.
60
it's
portions
JJ.
from Steve.
It's JJ. You never know what he's gonna do. But why go to the trouble of setting up all of this that Rey's a nobody for him to go back and retcon it? Am I answering the question wrong again?
It sounds to me like the Force is with you, but just about as much Force as Holdo has.
Yeah.
Well, the pitch is JJ. Let's say JJ does twist it up and make her parents significant. Is the Force with you?
Do you want that to happen?
I would really, at this point, no. But if you had asked me before The Last Jedi came out, I would have said yes. I was expecting that to happen.
We should also note that J.J. Abrams was an executive producer on this movie and has said that he would have directed it if he had the chance. So it's not like he's not aware.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, but
I'm gonna say that the Force is with me. In that if JJ decides to change it, I'm not going to be upset by it. Like, I'm not going to be like, oh my God. I would just be like, okay, yeah. That makes sense. Like, it's an easy thing to be like, Kylo's lying. Like, cause 1 minute ago, he just cut his master in half. And then right after that, he tried to kill a bunch of other people. Like, if they want to give me no, he was lying, I'll be like, I buy that. Do I want it? I don't really care. I would say like, yeah, the Force is with me about as much as Holdo has it, like, according to Laura Dern. Like, yeah, kind of cool. I'm for it.
John, what do you think?
No, the Force is not with me. Because, that was her I'm your father moment, the hardest possible thing you could ever hear. And that's what it was. But she didn't hear it. She said it first. He said, you know it, say it. And she said they were nobody. So she came to that realization, and I don't think Kylo Ren was powerful enough to put thoughts in her head. I think she was powerful enough to bounce his thoughts. We saw that in The Force Awakens when she was less trained. So she came to the realization, and it kind of echoes what Maz kind of said to her in the first one, like, they're not coming back, whoever you're looking for. And who would her parents be at this point? Like, they're just going to be like, yep, it was Kenobi after all, like the Scooby-Doo moment. I don't know. So I'm going to say, no, the Force is not with me. I'm down with her being a nobody and then kind of paving her own way and maybe paying a tribute to the Skywalkers by saying, I don't have a last name, so I'm just going to call myself Rey Skywalker. The end.
We get it. We know what you want to happen, John. You don't have to keep saying it. And James.
Stupid.
Stop talking, John.
I'm kind of with Alex. Like, I think that whatever they end up doing, I'm along for the ride. So if JJ does in fact want to go down this route and he wants to reveal it to be something else, I'm going to be swept off my feet and I'm going to go, that's awesome. The one thing that's going to bother me about that situation is the fact that I feel like it's crazy that people are still fighting for her parents to be something when they're spelling it out for you that it's not. They're like, they give you The Force Awakens, they told you, and we didn't accept it. So they're like, all right, well, we're definitely coming in The Last Jedi, and we're giving it, we're hand feeding it to you. There is no parentage for Rey. It's not a story thread that we're doing. Are you happy now? And people are still doing it. So that makes me like frustrated. Now, if they come out and it turns out that they were right the whole time, I'm like, what the heck? You know?
Yeah.
I think that's just going to kind of bother me that like, it wasn't like a misleading thing. It's more along the lines of like people saying like, no, there's going to be ducks at the end of episode 9. You're like, what are you talking about? No, there won't. And then when there is, you're like, I don't even know what to say.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there were ducks at the end of episode 9. Like, so I don't know. I guess the Force is with me in the sense that if JJ does it, it's cool, whatever. But there is that sense, like, I just really don't think that's going to happen. I think that's been pretty proven.
But just to speculate irresponsibly here now after listening to all of this.
Yeah, about the ducks, right?
About the ducks, yes. No, but like, could you see something sort of happening where we get to go back to the first thing, Force Ghost Luke, and he reveals to her she reveals to her who her parents are, and that this whole time that on Octu, when she went to go do that, he was like, she's not ready. And so he was doing something to sort of block her from being able to actually see who it could have been.
No, because he shut himself off from the Force, and he doesn't know who Rey is, and that could all be a front. Yes, I understand all that, but at the same time, I just don't think that's the story, and I think Ryan told the right story. What's the hardest thing for Rey to face? And it's the fact that she doesn't have any parents. And I think that orphans in Star Wars is a good story, and that's the story that they're trying to follow up on. Like, the Anakin doesn't really have a father thing, like, so Rey doesn't have both of her parents. They're not telling the story of Luke. They're telling the story of like Anakin, or they're telling the story of like someone new that Luke doesn't have anywhere to come from. She doesn't even have Shmi, you know?
She has no Shmi. Like if Luke fake projected that, saying that was the dark side on Octu and it really wasn't, and he was just putting that. Like, I see what you're saying, Steve. That the hypothetical is interesting to me.
Yeah, but it kind of, I mean, that's true.
Like, yeah, like that. Like,
but I think it kind of like undercuts what Luke's journey was, if he really was using the Force and he really was like manipulating or setting up Rey for something else. It seems weird. But
you're absolutely right, and you're thinking about it on a much deeper level than I was.
No, but you're playing devil's advocate, and that's smart. That's what we need to do.
And maybe this is a dig at JJ or not, but not only that, but I also go, you made a very good point about The Last Jedi, and you were like, Ryan set out to make this movie, and that's the movie he made. I go, but what's the movie JJ is gonna do and decide to do with that? That's different than what Ryan is as a filmmaker.
Yeah, I think that the reason why we speculate so much about who Rey's parents are, where Finn comes from, where all these characters come from is solely based on the fact that in one movie there's a big reveal about Luke's parentage. The rest of there's not a lot of big reveals in Star Wars besides that. So it makes sense that there was this great desire to find out who Rey's parents are. Now,
same thing with Snoke. Who is Snoke? You know?
Yeah.
He's not.
I would say
anything.
No, but the way that he's presented to us is as if like, oh, this is a thing, that this is the mystery they're presented to us on both fronts.
Snoke isn't presented like that. I would make the argument that that's all speculation that created that fervor around Snoke. There's never a moment where they're like, who's Snoke?
Yeah, and that's my point. I'm saying Star Wars has only ever given us one big reveal, but because it gave us one reveal at one time, everything has to be, what's the big reveal going to be? And
so we're not getting Han's parents in Solo a Star Wars story?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But when you present this character of Rey to us as this lost person that was left on a planet is marking every day she's been left there. Like, you're setting this whole character up.
Maz Kanata asks her, like, who are you? That's the first line, I think, in the teaser.
So, like,
when she says, I'm no one.
To me, I go, that's not us relying on one movie back in the day that gave us the one reveal. Like, they're literally, like, they presented it to us that way.
I want to piggyback on that, Steve. I think it's the issue people are having with Rey's parentage in The Last Jedi is a problem that JJ set up, not Rian Johnson introduced. JJ cut and wrote a script that creates that question that doesn't need to be asked. Like, there are multiple cuts in that movie now that I actually take exception with because of what happened in Last Jedi. And the biggest one is when Maz Kanata goes, who's the girl? And they cut away. If the answer is I don't know, why cut away?
Yep.
The cutaway right there creates a question for the audience that doesn't need to be asked.
Well, he probably wanted to do that to leave opportunity.
Exactly. So he did create that question. So fan speculation comes from choices JJ made within Force Awakens. People just don't like the answer because it's a letdown if you're hoping for a big reveal.
I understand your cutaway argument. That actually does make a lot of sense to me. My thing with Force Awakens is Maz coming down 5 minutes later and says, you have to understand, honey, calm down for a minute. You have to know the people who left you are never coming back. You know that, right? You know that. I know you know that. Admit that. And then, but look to the future. There's someone who still can be there for you. And she answers Luke Skywalker. That was the answer to her parentage, and people didn't want to accept it. That was after JJ sets that question up, and then he answers it in his own movie. And Daisy's like, I thought this was an answered thing, but nobody seemed to pick up on it. All right, I guess we got to hit that beat again in Last Jedi. That's how I feel about it. But
yeah, I'm with you. But like, then you still have all these questions post that sequence. Was like, what girl? Like Kylo, what girl? Like you literally, like, there are multiple cuts in that movie where they ask the question, who? And then they go, they cut to another, like, you like that movie. Yeah, that it's
like even lingering on Han. Like when Han just kind of looks at her, kind of like,
much green in the world, and like, Han's like,
it's the same thing that everyone's going crazy.
Han's like,
there's just a lot.
I feel like we're rehashing the last year of before the Last Jedi came out.
Because I kind of set up why are fans longing for that explanation. I just don't want to let The Force Awakens off the hook, in the sense that, like, if the goal was always to have her be nobody, there are a few cuts in that movie that probably could have just had one more second of dialogue. Han like, I don't know, I just found her with the Falcon. You know what I mean? Like it like, you know what I mean? Like, who's the girl? I don't know, man. She's with some guy who clearly is a stormtrooper. I don't know. And then it's like, if Han says, I don't know, then you're now nixing all this idea of like, is she a Solo? Is she a, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm just throwing that out there. We don't need to stay on Rey's parentage forever. I like what happened in Last Jedi.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think you need to know who her parents are anymore, but I totally agree with Force Awakens that there were a lot of questions, J.J. Abrams style, left up in the air. I'm having flashbacks to Lost. Like, what? Okay, so moving on to our last topic. Solo, a Star Wars story, hits theaters in just 6 weeks. And early box office prediction trackers are tracking at a $150 million opening, right around what Rogue One pulled in. However, Rogue One is not coming out off the heels of a controversial Star Wars film as Solo is, and some of these box office trackers are targeting Solo topping out at around $475 million domestically. Oh my God, what little money. Which is great for any movie to achieve, but it would make it the lowest grossing Star Wars film under the Disney umbrella, falling short of Rogue One's domestic haul of $532 million. Again, what a small number. According to these numbers and this prediction, Solo, a Star Wars story, will be the lowest grossing Disney-owned Star Wars film to date. Is the Force with you, Alex?
The Force is not with me. Those numbers are ridiculous. That movie is going to make a lot of money. The thing that's holding that movie back from a big box office has nothing to do with the opinion of The Last Jedi. Newsflash, Star Wars Twitter, the average movie-going audience member has no idea what Star Wars fans are talking about on Twitter. All they hear is Han Solo, Lando Calrissian, Millennium Falcon, Star Wars, I like lightsabers, I'm gonna go. And that's really hard for Star Wars fans to accept, but it's just the truth. The reason that movie is going to have a rough time at the box office compared to Rogue One, The Last Jedi, and Force Awakens is the Avengers, Deadpool, Jurassic World, all of these massive blockbuster budget movies are going to be chopping into its box office. It has nothing, like, I'm going to say it. Should Disney be worried? No, because Disney's going to make a boatload of cash on Han Solo. I think 150 million is, I actually think that's maybe a little too steep for opening day. I think it's going to do like 135, maybe like 125 to 135. But I think this movie is going to surprise people. It's going to be Steve and I always call it the Fast and Furious of the Star Wars movies. It's going to be fun, campy, silly, spaceships, racing, blasters. It's going to be fun. People are going to like it. And guess what? When people can't get tickets to Deadpool, they're going to go see Solo if they didn't see it the opening weekend. If they can't get tickets to Jurassic World, they'll check out Solo. That movie's going to be just fine.
I'm on the same page as Alex. Like
solidarity.
It's not just solidarity. It's not only that. I think this is, and I keep saying this, I actually think this movie is going to be the highest grossing Star Wars film in China.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
I think that this will be the highest grossing Star Wars film because to me, I go, you don't have to have all the baggage of knowing the history. Because since the original trilogy was not really released there, that has a lot to do with people, the movie not doing as well over there. They don't have the nostalgia for it that we do in the numbers that we do and other places around the world. However, something that's proving very fruitful at the Chinese box office after the last few years are
Transformers,
fast cut chase scenes, big explosions, cars racing, blasters happening.
Pacific Rim.
Pacific Rim. You don't need a lot of dialogue and a lot of you like all those visuals alone.
So Michael Bay, pretty much, is what you're saying.
Sure, but I'm not trying to say that's necessarily a bad thing either. I think what it is it's a way for American cinema to sort of cross over to them with the language barrier and the cultural barrier of a lot of the things we are just norms in our culture that are not norms there. But yeah, I think this movie is going to be like it right now. Again, like Alex said, nobody pays attention to Star Wars Twitter and Star Wars whatnot except for us and the Star Wars people that are on there and this big fan community, and it's great. But ultimately, like we're a very small section of the world and population, and like Alex said, fans that are like, hey, I love Han Solo, I like that character, I love Lando. There's fast ships, there's blasters. Hey, look, and Chewie, I'm there. I think that's just and I'm right there again in solidarity with Alex on the numbers and everything. I think people just need to relax and, quite frankly, I'm kind of stoked on the fact that we haven't gotten trailers and all the marketing materials and the blitz because it kind of reminds me of the old days, not to be a grandpa again, to where you had to go to the movies to see the trailers and this and that. And like we didn't spend 40 days or 6 months just like, oh, this scene and dissecting it. And then we go in blind and just be surprised and like I'm stoked to have that experience right now with this movie.
John, what do you think?
I loved everything Steve just said, but I still think I'm buying this. That I think Solo is still going to be the least performing of. Oh,
I agree with that. Sorry if I didn't make that clear, but like I'm saying, let's not worry. Like it's still going to make $1 billion.
No.
Like it's Yeah.
I'm buying that it's going to be the least. I think in terms of fan appreciation and stuff, it's going to do better than people think. So I'm on board with that. But in terms of this right here with the money, I think you have Rogue One, which galloped off the heels of the highest grossing movie ever, which happened to be another Star Wars movie in The Force Awakens, which was high acclaim, high fan love, high box office, love. Rogue One comes out, Vader's in it, which helped it, I think, gallop over that hump that Solo doesn't really have unless they tossed him in this movie too. So I think it's going to fall around the 500 mark domestic, a little lower than Rogue One. So long story short, yes, I buy this. The Force is with me, but it doesn't mean it's a bad thing or anything like that. It's still killer, juggernaut, and awesome. It's just going to happen to be the lowest of the juggernauts for Star Wars right now.
James.
I don't want to waste any time talking about all the same things you guys have talked about. My predictions are it's going to break that 100 mark for opening weekend. I think it's going to come in as the shortest, so The Force is with me on the least amount of money. But my prediction that I haven't heard yet is I don't think it's going to break $1 billion. Like I know, Steve, you were saying you think it's going to be the biggest in China. That's one way to get there. Something that Rogue One wasn't able to accomplish, and Rogue One still broke $1 billion, so that sets it kind of on the course of doing well. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say it doesn't break $1 billion. But again, to reinforce that, don't be worried. That's fine.
Still a beast. Yeah.
$999 million is awesome.
I hate, but it really bums me out that like that's the new era that we're in. That like,
oh yeah, like even the question is kind of set up to be like, oh, are we in for a failure on And it's
that's the thing is you already have
questioning.
But it's like you already have a ton of think pieces about how The Last Jedi was a failure because it didn't do whatever that The Force Awakens does. And it's just like Alex's look right now on his face is how I feel.
I was listening to a popular movie blog. I won't get into names. And they kept saying, well, Last Jedi all movies are going up, but Last Jedi went down. It's like, yeah, dude, because Force Awakens is the highest grossing domestic movie of all time. So Last Jedi would have to be the highest grossing domestic movie of all time to have an upward trajectory. We hold these movies to an impossible standard. right? Last Jedi is not a failure. It is the highest grossing movie of 2017. Solo's problem will be Avengers. It will be Deadpool. Like everybody that's whining about The Last Jedi on Twitter is going to go see Solo 4 times on opening weekend. There's no way. If they've spent the last 4 months whining about what Luke does in The Last Jedi, they care about Star Wars enough to go see Han Solo. So like this idea,
and then complain about that one.
It's like Star Wars fans like to pretend like it's like an abusive relationship for Star Wars fans. We like to pretend that we don't care, but dude, they're all going to go out and see it. And it's going to make, but maybe it won't cross 1 billion. But my point is this idea that like Star Wars is on this downward trajectory is crazy to me, because everybody forgets about the fact that it's the highest grossing domestic movie. That's like saying Avatar 2 is a failure if it doesn't cross Avatar numbers. It's like, well, nothing's crossed Avatar numbers. So does that make every movie a failure? So I just, when I hear movie pundits talk like this, I always just go, you're just trying to get clicks. It has nothing, like if you actually look at the reality of what's going on, I guarantee you Disney's not batting an eye with the numbers that Last Jedi did. They maybe came in 200 million shorter than what they wanted.
They gave Rian Johnson a blank canvas for $200
million short. They probably wanted 1.5 billion is probably what they wanted. They got 1.3. Oh my God. Should Disney be worried? Like, sorry, I don't mean to rant. It's just like this story just drives me nuts. This idea that like there are 5 people on webcams talking about this franchise right now. It's doing fine. It's doing fine.
Amen, brother.
I couldn't agree more.
Sorry.
I completely agree with Alex. Actually, the
Sorry.
anger that boils inside of me when I hear people talking about anything like, oh, Star Wars isn't doing that great, or, oh, Rian Johnson ruined my Star Wars. It's not going to make my money. You know, it's just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous that if you can't be open-minded enough to see where it's going to go and not repeating the same things over and over again, and then you're not going to agree that these movies are going to make buckets of money, which they will. I stood next to BB-8 for 3 full days, and I could tell you right now, people love Star Wars.
Yes.
It is a robot that is sitting there just beeping, and people went nuts.
Yeah.
So I don't care what anybody says. Star Wars has nowhere to go. It is here to stay. It's going to make buckets of money. There's going to be theme parks and merchandise. Whether you like Han Solo or not, it's going to be shoved in your face, and you're going to buy the stuff up because that's what fans want.
What did I tweet,
so
Steve?
I'm on Alex's
I tweeted,
side.
I think the day Last Jedi came out on Blu-ray, this actually happened. As I was going into Target to buy The Last Jedi, somebody went, I just hated what Rian Johnson did this. I hated what he did with this movie. It's not that good. As he picks up 3 copies of the movie to check out with. Like, that's what I'm talking about. It's like, well, I hated this movie, but obviously I need to go buy it. I got to buy 3 copies just in case.
People forget that, like, I'm sorry, and if you like these movies, it's fine, but Incredible Hulk was not that great of a success for Marvel. It wasn't.
That movie
Iron Man 2 was like, thankfully we haven't gotten a Star Wars movie yet that's like let people down, truly let people down the way those movies have.
Like every Punisher movie?
Yes.
It's just like one of these things where it's like, guys.
Ghost Rider 2 is a flop.
Stop.
Ghost Rider 2 is a flop, not The Last Jedi. Like,
right.
It's just insane. $1.3 billion worldwide. Disney, what are they going to do? Like, what are they going to do? That movie cost $300 million to make. They made $1 billion on that movie.
And that's not including the merchandising.
Yes. You know what that means? Disney's going to have to close down.
Yeah, we're done.
They're going to have to file for bankruptcy. Bob Iger's going to have to get a new downsize, get a new house.
Better buy as much apple juice as you can right now.
Somebody get Bob Iger an apple juice.
Yeah, there it is. 9 months later.
We got it.
Well, moving away from Solo and into the future of Star Wars, I'm going to hand it back over to John to talk about our favorite person, or my favorite person, and Black Series Rebels' favorite person, Rian Johnson.
Obi-Wan once thought as you do.
Thanks, Lacey. So that's pretty much a pretty natural segue there, because we were really just getting into Rian Johnson and what's been going on with the culture of Star Wars. And the recent interview he did that Lacey actually brought up to us that we should talk about. So Lacey, this discussion, you pretty much triggered this based on that article, but we wanted to get away from him talking about The Last Jedi because, like, enough's enough. Like, we don't want to talk about The Last Jedi anymore. I mean, we do, but we don't want to talk about it in this way. But the future, his new trilogy, he's confirmed that it's still happening. It's still going on. The wheels are turning. The ideas are going. But he talked about that Star Wars needs to evolve and needs to set the bar the way it did 40 years ago. It can't be a Rolling Stones nostalgia act. So we thought this discussion would be good, like knowing that this guy kind of has his finger on the pulse. I know not all of you out there agree, but he has his finger on the pulse of what this franchise needs to do. Now, how does he do it? By making it still Star Wars and reinventing the new. So what do you think we're getting into? What is best for the future of Star Wars with new stories beyond the Skywalkers?
Who talks first? You talk first? I talk first?
Apparatus.
I just ranted, so I'm holding back.
James,
holding for general hugs. Holding for general hugs.
Can he hear me?
I don't know, man. I mean, I think that Rian Johnson, I said it a while back. We got a Twitter question that came in that said, hey, we were hearing, bad things about Last Jedi and stuff. And do you think that Disney would move away from Rian Johnson? And I was like, absolutely not. Right. Because it doesn't change the fact that Lucasfilm, like Kathleen Kennedy, had some of the best experience she's ever worked with, as a producer with Ryan and Ram.
The beginning of The Director and the Jedi, she said that. She's like, this was the best experience.
For me, I'm looking at that situation and I'm saying, okay, so I think that Rian Johnson now has an opportunity. They're saying, okay, maybe we did some things, that the fans didn't like. Maybe we pull back here a little bit. Maybe we embrace a little bit more of what we think, JJ was doing, that they did like, or, and they just kind of let the Last Jedi be the first draft. But now he's got an even better feel of how fans are going to react to some things that he decides to do. And I think that's a good thing for him. I think that the chemistry is there, working with the people who are actually making the film. And then for him to be given the money and given the ability to create something new is really great. Do you guys have any speculation on... I mean, I know it's totally like, well, it could be anything, but do you have any ideas that you've been kind of running with for a while that it would take place still in the same era or something like 1,000 years before or after?
That's all I ask. No KOTOR, nothing we've seen before. Just do something new, please. That's my take.
I have I don't even know where to begin, because as he showed with The Last Jedi, there's no way for me to be able to guess, because he totally, I don't know. We left the Force Awakens with speculation, and now really, and then with The Last Jedi, all I left with was anticipation for what's coming next, because I ain't got a clue as to what it's going to be. And so in regards to his new trilogy, look, I love The Last Jedi. I'm on board. I personally cannot begin to even speculate about when it could be, where it could be, or what, any of that. I'm just stoked to see it and see what he does with it, because I really enjoyed the themes and how much thought and care was put into his movie with The Last Jedi.
When's his first movie coming out?
They haven't announced that yet.
2021.
No, I know they haven't. I'm saying
2022.
I'd say 2021.
2021. Okay,
that's what I think.
So as of now, they're definitely not making that dumb Obi-Wan Kenobi movie, which we're not getting anything for 2020. So we get 2019 December, and we don't get anything 2020. We get December 2021, Rian Johnson first film. That's your guess, Alex?
I think so. I do think you're going to get something, though, between...
You think we're going to get something in 2020?
Yeah. I think you are going to get something in 2020.
Our discussion topic is about Ryan and that trilogy or whatever. Really quick though, do you think it's the Obi-Wan film, or do you think it's a Boba Fett, or
what do I think we'll get?
That 2020.
In 2020, I would it could even be as simple as like a second live action show. I don't know if it's going to be a standalone film. I feel like that would be announced. That seems like money in the bank. I think if Solo crushes, we'll get a standalone announcement that they probably already have a script that's in development. It'll be like, this is coming out 2020. We start filming in fall of 2018. We have all of 2019 post-production 2020. Like, they could easily bang out a Boba Fett movie or an Obi-Wan movie or a Yoda movie. Like, they can bang that out. I'm not saying I want that. I'm just saying they could. It's not hard. It's it's the beginning of 2018. If you get something, if you already have scripts in development, which I guarantee you they do, we could probably have something by Christmas of 2020. We'll see.
All right, John, time heals all wounds. Are we going to see Last Jedi haters come back when they see that first trailer, when they start hearing rumblings of what Rian could be doing, and they're like, okay, so wait a minute, let me get this straight. Luke Skywalker's not involved. You're not going to ruin any of my precious characters, you know? I know that people still have issues other than like Luke and stuff with, you know, pacing and all kinds of, you know, I hate Canto Bite and stuff. And that's all Rian Johnson. But do you think that 2021, they've seen a couple other movies and they're back on the Star Wars train? Do you think people give Rian a second shot?
I don't know. There's going to be some people where it's going to be over. Like Star Wars is going to be over for them because
like that guy that bought the 3 movies. He's going to go back and buy 3 more movies.
He's done. That guy's just a different version of you guys. It's like one to burn, one to open. Like what is it?
One to rock, one to stock, and one just cause.
One just cause.
Yeah, that's what he's doing.
Yeah. Like there's going to be the guys who hung on to the Skywalkers by like 2 fingers on the ledge. Like, I'm hanging on. Finish this story. Yeah, and then now, whether they hate it or love it, they're going to see the end for now of the Skywalker story, Luke Skywalker anyway, and Leia and all them, and they're going to be done. They're going to be like, I'm done with Star Wars. I've had enough. Like, screw this guy. He can tell us all new story. There are dude, I see Alex shaking his head, but there are going to be some people who do that, man. They're going to leave it where it is, but most Star Wars fans are going to be on board. Now, I didn't want to, my angle for this discussion wasn't to speculate what he's going to do because I have no idea. But I was really turned on by what he said about the importance of Star Wars cutting new ground, because that's what Star Wars was 40 years ago. So he understands that they need to do new things in Star Wars. I want to find out what exactly that is. I know the Force is going to be involved because Kenobi said the Force binds the galaxy together. It's not just this family or whatever. But I'm curious to see where he goes with that. And I do like the fact that Star Wars can't hang on to the Skywalkers forever, and it's not going to be a greatest hits thing for forever. If it's going to be Star Wars, which is supposed to be the innovator, they need to do new stuff.
Mm-hmm. Which is exactly what he did with The Last Jedi. And these people that shit themselves and are going crazy on the keyboard about it, like, fine. Don't go to the movie. I don't know. Yeah, but like he's already showed us that he's beginning to do that with The Last Jedi.
They're still going to go, though.
Yeah.
Human behavior, they'll
They're
go.
still
and
gonna
say
go.
they were there.
They're still going to go. But also,
I'm telling you, John Huey. By the way, we know it's Hoey, but we say Huey. We call you Huey.
Yes.
We know it's Hoey, but we call you Huey.
Lewis in the news?
Yeah. Huey Lewis in the news. I know you're shaking your head like, no, they're done. I'm telling you, they're not. And I mean this respectfully because I don't want to offend anyone because everyone's entitled to their own opinions. Force Awakens is the highest grossing Star Wars movie of all time. Guess what that movie's following up? The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith.
And
the average movie-going audience left off on, I'm sorry, the average movie-going audience left off on 3 okay movies and still came back.
Just say it, dude. Just say it.
The prequels, I love them. They're not good movies. They're not good movies.
Ever on the Resistance broadcast.
Yes. Fuck the prequels. Yeah. I'm that's a joke. I say that as a joke, right? I just don't want people to think that I'm like being hard on those movies. Like, I'm just talking specifically about like, take my mom or my fiance who is like Star Wars, the average movie going audience, sit her down and have her watch Attack of the Clones. If she's still willing to go see The Force Awakens, like The Last Jedi did not ruin people's I'm telling you, it's going to be fine.
My dad saw all the Star Wars prequels with me when I was little, and he's an electrician and doesn't give a shit about Star Wars. And when I talked to him about the Phantom Menace, he's like, oh, that's the racing one, right? That's fun.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, they're going to go see it.
I think you have to compartmentalize a little bit, though, because The Last Jedi still was able to bring back the Skywalkers and Leia and Luke and the actors they knew. There was still a tie there. Now, if they didn't like what this guy did with those characters, and then he's like, I'm starting something brand new that your childhood and your history and what you liked was tied to, I think there are going to be people that are like, I'm out, man. I'll go watch Marvel or something.
There are people in this world who just don't like change, and
no, yeah, I agree.
Nothing's ever going to do anything for them.
Yeah.
So I think John's point kind of here too is like I work with a lot of people that whenever they hear me talking about Star Wars and stuff, I'll ask them and they say, yeah, I saw Star Wars 4, 5, and 6. That's all there is. They don't care about prequels. They don't care about episode 7, and they honestly, like, it ended after Return of the Jedi for them. Now I think there's another breed of people that I don't think there's anybody that's like, nope, I saw it 1 through 6. That's it. There is no 7. Like that kind of doesn't exist.
I don't think so, yeah.
I feel like most people who liked or watched or went to all the prequel movies, they're bought in with this 7, 8, and 9 too. But I think what John is thinking, that there might just be a point at which they go, you know what, like they did 4, 5, 6, they did 1, 2, 3, now they did 7, 8, and 9, and they're trying to start a new thing. It's just like, it's like riding a roller coaster and then being like, that was great, and then like everybody being like, let's do it again, and you're like, 1 was enough. I did the whole thing.
I loved college.
I did
I don't
3
need to go
trilogies.
back to college.
I'm not looking for like another thing. I think the story's done, you know.
Yeah, I hear
maybe
that.
They'll come back with like 10, 11, and 12, but like a whole nother like Rian Johnson trilogy, a Benioff and Wise series. I'm not into all that. I think that's John's point.
It pretty much is.
I hear.
I want to talk about Skywalkers.
When you're
not talking about Skywalkers,
yeah. When you spell it out like that, that makes more sense to me. So when you say like, are people willing to sign on to a greater cinematic universe for Star Wars, as opposed to, are people going to watch more Star Wars movies? Now, I would throw this out. Disney's not dumb. They wouldn't launch multiple new trilogies if they didn't have faith that they can weave this thing into something like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right?
Correct. You're also targeting a new generation. Yes. There's new 7-year-olds out there who want to. That's going to be their Skywalkers,
and they expect that. Like they now expect that these big blockbuster movies they're like video games, right? I'm going to get one every 2 years, right? There's going to be more Star Wars, right? That's becoming the new norm. So I do think that's actually a really interesting point, right? Like kids and younger audiences expect to go to these theaters and have these movies treated like television shows. You're going to get one every year, and it's going to be 2 hours, and I'm going to like it, and it's going to be processed into a fun shape that looks like all the other shapes, and then I move on to the next thing. But that James, I think you bring up the biggest point is, are fans ready for, or the average movie-going audience ready for a Star Wars cinematic universe? I think Rian Johnson's trilogy will define that. I don't think we know, because Star Wars has never done that before. So
people jumped on board with Rogue One.
Yeah.
You know, that wasn't
Vader.
A Skywalker story. It was Vader, but at the same time they said, wait a minute, this isn't like
Death
one
Star.
of the episodic films. Or maybe about halfway through they went in there like, where's Rey? Like it's still
that girl doesn't look like Rey.
Hasn't shown up yet. Yeah. No, but to prove that point is they were very clear that they were doing a movie that did not fit into the regular Star Wars, and they turned out. That movie did over $1 billion. So I think that the overall truth is, if it's got that Star Wars title, then people who loved 4, 5, 6, and 1, 2, 3, that group is still into 7. They're still into 8. They're still into Rogue One.
Okay.
They're still into Solo.
How about this question?
They're still going to be into Rian Johnson.
How do you make a brand new Star Wars story? Literally blank canvas. Bob Ross is just getting his palette going. How do you remind people who are going to see it that it's a Star Wars movie in the movie, I'm saying?
X-Wings, AT-ATs, blaster bolts, lightsabers, stormtrooper helmet, end of the day.
So
yeah, but all those things are very galactic Civil War. X-Wings are very hard to come across. Stormtroopers are not going to be around if you don't have the Empire. If you have the Empire, then it's the same era.
Yeah, I guess like how close are they going to bring it? Like,
what
like,
if we
is it gonna
had
be-
an Ahsoka Ezra trilogy?
No, because people aren't going to want to have to go watch cartoons and stuff to
What
The-
if they
the
did it in a
general
way
movie.
that you didn't have to watch the
where you introduce the characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, there's always that argument of like, okay, Saw Gerrera was a character that you don't need the Clone Wars, but people just were like, oh, this is a new character, Saw Gerrera, and like the sweaties are like, no, you're Clone Wars, you know. But
Yeah.
to answer
Like,
that
for
where
the
is
average-
Ezra type question, but then they could introduce new characters like Force Awakens, and then those characters could then take over the rest
well,
of the trilogy.
I think if they were to make an Ezra movie, I think they would just introduce the character as you don't know who this is.
Yes.
This is Ezra Bridger.
It would have
Right.
nothing
DJ.
to
You know?
do with like where he is,
Correct.
what
Yeah.
he's been doing.
Yeah, he would just be
Yeah.
on his story.
He's
and,
DJ.
and
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
what I said, we
it
talked.
still could happen.
We talked a little bit about this on our show where I said, like, if Star Wars fans wrote Star Wars, like in the middle of that throne room, it would have been like, Snoke would have been like, I know who you are, Rey Skywalker. That's your brother, but you also love each other. And these are my Praetorian guards, also known as the entire cast of Rebels. And they all take their helmets
Yeah.
off. And it's
and
like,
the Knights
meet,
of Ren.
yeah, meet Hera, the best pilot in the galaxy, way better than your dad, Han Solo. That's not true. And then Ezra's like, I met Han Solo in the spin-off movie. Like, it's like,
And then Billy D. Williams shows
Yes,
up
it's-
with Finn and a birth certificate that it's his son.
Exactly. Like, I do I think they could introduce Ezra? Yeah, that's super cool. But I really do think like the only way that this Rian Johnson trilogy works is if it's not connected
At
at
all.
all.
Yeah.
and they
Yes,
start
that's
making
what I'm
the
saying,
universe
man. So-
bigger.
So
The re-
Alex, how does he do it and
Yeah,
still
that's
make
the
it Star
question.
Wars? Like, where's the line?
I think the thing that has to be the only thing that has to be there is this idea of the Force, the light side, and the dark side. So the way you engage with the Force, whether you do it from a place of good or a place of evil, that is the fundamental thing that has to be in a Star Wars story. Now,
Question.
go ahead.
We had the Empire and we had the Rebels, and we thought, well, how are they going to do away with that? And they did. They turned it into the Resistance and the First Order. Do you think there's any chance that they're kind of setting us up through Legends of Luke Skywalker and some other stuff that Rian Johnson's trilogy actually they don't reference it as the Force. They call it something different, and it's the same thing. Or do you think that the word
That's
Force
where
is
it
the
gets
thing
crazy.
that has to be the Force?
I think
Because
I think
they've
in
been
the
setting up
movie-
for a while that like the Ashla, the Bogan, the Zeb and their people and what
Mist,
they call it.
the Mist,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I would say, again, this is hard for Star Wars fans to hear, but the movie, we have to treat the movies, they're different than the TV shows and the books. And I think that in a movie, you call it the Force. Now,
The Force.
it could be like he has the Mist for like the first thing, and then they go like, let's go talk to this little guy, and it's a creature like Yoda, and he goes, the Force, I'm gonna teach you what this really is. And that's like the big reveal, and then the whole movie is about creating the mythology around the Force in Star Wars. Like, I'm cool with that, but like there's no way in like the trailer like a Jedi lights like not a lightsaber, some weird staff made of wood, and goes, I will use the wave on you. And I was like, what the hell is the wave? Like, it's not gonna happen. Like,
It's like a generic version, like it's like Fruity O's.
yes,
It's a laser
exactly.
Star
It's
Wars.
like,
It's a laser sword, not a lightsaber.
yeah.
you know, you were talking a little bit about like how can it work, right? Like Star Wars in a completely new thing that is not tied. I mean, I look right now, Fantastic Beasts made $814 million. That is, nobody asked for Harry Potter without Harry Potter. At least Star Wars is called Star Wars, not Skywalker. Like,
But they are adding
yeah.
Dumbledore into the second movie, though.
that's true. They are. But to be fair, though, there's nothing about Harry Potter or Dumbledore in this first movie. We're talking specifically about that first movie, and $814 million is a lot of money for a movie called Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them in the Wizarding World. Like they're even
in
saying,
America, it wasn't even in England.
Exactly. Like if that in that movie is not even that good, and it still made that kind of money, right? Like it's okay. I fell asleep in Wizarding World, and I love the Harry Potter franchise.
But it's got wands.
Yeah. So I think the idea of a Star Wars, just as big as Harry Potter, if not bigger. So can it work? Absolutely. But to James's point, sorry to bring us fully off topic, but like, I think really it needs to have the Force. Can it be called something else? Sure. But if you're looking to make numbers that Disney's looking to make, they're not going to do it. There's no way. Like, and I know Kanan's your boy, right? Like Kanan's your favorite character. I just don't see a world where it's like Rian Johnson presents like Kanan's adventures, or you know what I mean, or something like that.
I'm 100% with you, man. Like Kanan wasn't on my coolest character competition. You know, it's just like there's some realities that like, he's my favorite character, but he's not the coolest. He's my favorite charecter. Yeah, he doesn't deserve his own movie.
He had to have made some pitch, and Kathleen and Bob were like, "Yep, here's 3 movies."
Do you think it had anything to do with Broom Boy? If not something like that, where
I
it's
hope
completely
not.
new one?
No, and that to me is too connected to the world, and I think if they want to do something different, that's again, it's just too connected. And I'll tell you what his pitch
completely
isn't.
different. I don't want anything to do with this.
I'm with you, yeah.
Yeah, I tell you what Ryan's pitch is. That he goes, you know what? I've been watching a lot of that Rebels show.
Yeah,
and I was thinking like I could do, you know, it's like they're just they're gonna say no. Like that's your big pitch. Like you just did The Last Jedi, and you just like left all that on the table, and now you're wanting to go back to Rebels.
And Dave Filoni's like, what the hell?
He may have pitched something that parallels the timeline of the Galactic Civil War, but it's not. It's on the outer, outer reaches.
I was thinking of it more as like it would start off with them so that the audience sees someone they recognize, but then it would bring in the new characters like it does with Force Awakens.
So a long time ago, I actually pitched this to Matt Martin on Twitter. I said, are we ever going to get a Star Wars story that doesn't have anything to do with Star Wars? Which is funny because, or the Galactic Civil War. And
Star Wars movie has nothing to do with Star Wars.
Didn't mean it
and
that
Matt
way.
Martin was like, please stop talking to me.
No, Matt's my example to Matt was like, look, we have tons of movies that take place about the World War II, and you know, all that stuff is, you know, Germany and the United States and all these things, right? But what was going on in China at that time? Because clearly it's not like everything was honky-dory. Like there's still stories to be told in these other worlds that just didn't honestly get involved in the world's war.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Like Rian Johnson's movie starts with the Death Star 2 blowing up, and then you go to light speed with the camera and you go somewhere else, and you're like, and this is happening elsewhere in the universe.
Yeah, just cities and planets that just don't have anything to do with the Galactic Civil War, and they're like, that's their thing.
And they've never heard of the Skywalkers.
We don't ever have to deal with that. We're worried about the Chiss ascendancy, and they're not going to do that. I'm just saying that is an example of like another problem that's out there that other people are struggling with that doesn't have anything to do with the Empire trying to take over.
I think you're quite literally going to get a movie that has themes that are traditional Star Wars themes, light, dark, Force. I do think you're going to get spaceships that have light speed. You're going to have scoundrels. You're going to have you're going to have all that stuff. It's going to be a new story. I think
it's going to hit all the beats.
It's going to hit all the beats, man. It's going to have stormtroopers. It's going to have like it just a matter of which era, right? If it's going to be, my guess would be is that it's probably in the sequel trilogy era.
Yeah.
It probably is in like the world. Like, again, it sounds dumb, but it's like, you know what Disney doesn't want to do? Invest a ton of money in new stormtroopers that need to walk around Star Wars land.
Yeah.
They want First Order stormtroopers walking around Star Wars land. They want it's just simple like, hey man, would you really do us a favor though? Could you make sure that this has like stormtroopers in it so we could sell like a bunch of different colored stormtrooper action figures, yeah, no sweat, it's going to have stormtroopers. Like, I just don't see them being like, we're going to take this so left field that it exists completely on its own, but also it's not going to touch Skywalker.
See, I think you're right to a degree. I think that it could take place in the same era, but what I think they're going to do is when that stuff starts rolling out, that's when they expand Star Wars land. And then you're in this world for a little while, and then you like walk through the gate, and then now all of a sudden you're in Rian Johnson's world, and it doesn't have First Order troopers, but it's got, I don't know, whatever it is, not Death Troopers, but whatever it is that they have, their problem, and those characters are walking around. And that's the thing is like, if like you go to the wizarding world, right, you get like one land, right, but then watch them, they'll expand it and they'll give us a Fantastic Beast world. And when you go over there, you're not going to see all the cues of Harry Potter stuff. You're going to see all the cues and all the fun stuff that has to do with Fantastic Beast. You're on their streets. You're going into their shops and their homes.
Then what if we take, sorry if I feel like I'm monopolizing this, but let's take the Marvel model then, right? Like Captain America doesn't fight the same villains as the Guardians of the Galaxy. Iron Man doesn't fight the same villains as Thor. Right? So if we're looking at an already successful model, what if it quite literally is like, Ryan's trilogy is over here, it's doing this with these people. You've got Lindelof over here, it's doing this with this stuff. You've got the TV show over here doing this with this stuff. And then every chunk of time, all of these things go, and you have this big celebratory event, like a crossover event where these things start to mix together. That now you're making a cinematic universe. You're making a big, huge world. Whether that's the case, I don't know. But I think if you look at it like that, maybe it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, it sounds like for the most part, though, with these movies, we all kind of want something new, right? But with familiar tones and things that make sense with marketing and all that. But we're getting up on it, so we probably got to wrap up the discussion pretty soon, unfortunately.
4 hours of this.
Yeah, 4 more hours of this. I mean, it like we said, it's interesting to see what he's gonna do, but he sounds like he's got his finger on the pulse, as I was saying. Like he knows that Star Wars needs to move forward and innovate, and be the trendsetter that it was 40 years ago instead of going back to the greatest hits. So closing brief thoughts on this discussion. Anybody?
I'm just gonna keep bringing Alex on to argue for me. And I have the same brain.
Just like tag me in like a wrestler.
Tag team. Tag him in.
Hey, Alex. No, I actually think I think James makes some really interesting points. Actually, just this idea of like there really are no limits as to what they can do. They really can do whatever they want. I just like to quote Ken Knapsack. It's like a speculate responsibly kind of thing, right? It's like I just really don't want fans to be like getting their hopes up that it's going to be this crazy thing, because like again, when you really boil it down to like when people think Star Wars, they really do think like some people don't think the Force, some people think stormtroopers, or some people think Darth Vader, or some people think that it's endless. So I'm just really interested to see what he does. But
I think that Rian Johnson and Benioff and Weiss both actually have probably the best chance for success, because everybody's kind of like treading lightly on their stuff. I don't think there's high expectations for their stuff. They're kind of like, you know what? I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Like just like in a very monotone, like I'm excited to see what that's going to be. Like it's not like this big like, oh my God, it's going to be huge. You know, everybody's just like, I'm stoked for it.
All right, well, like we were saying, we can go on for hours about the future of Star Wars and Rian Johnson, but like we were saying, we think we got the right guy there, among other things. But now it's time to move on, because we are up against it with time, to Resistance Expanded Universe, where we usually point out things in fandom, whether it's art, charity events, things you are all doing out there. But we have some special guests, as you guys know, and they had their live show, which premiered about 4 or 5 days ago on their channel, Black Series Rebels. So guys, take us into your show. I'm sure a lot of our listeners have already watched it by now, but take them inside baseball into your show.
Well, you know, when we started doing, I talked a little bit about this at the live show, but for folks who haven't watched it yet, one of the big reasons we started doing Black Series Rebels was Steve and I are both comedians living in Los Angeles. And the crazy thing about that is it's really, really hard to get people to come out and support live comedy because most people work in comedy or they work in the business. So like just doing stuff and getting out there and having fun, it's actually not the most pleasant experience in Los Angeles. It's really hard to get out there and do your own thing. And I sort of had this idea, not the most original idea, which is why don't we take these conversations that we're already having, like in an In-N-Out Burger drive-through or like post seeing a movie, and why don't we tape it in a way that seems fun and silly? And we'll do that every week instead of sketch comedy shows to 6 people. Like, let's try this and see how that goes. And I think Steve and I kind of, at first, we didn't really know what it was going to be. It was like, are we going to be like Collider? Are we going to be like, making Star Wars, Star Wars Newsnet? Is it going to be like a news thing? Is it going to be Steel Wars? Like, what is it? And we kind of landed on this. Yeah, like we kind of landed on this hybrid, which was like this idea that it's Wayne's World, but if they talked about like nerdy stuff instead of heavy metal. And as soon as we started doing it, I always wanted to do it in front of people. Like I was like, I want to prove that this works better than the stuff that I was doing before in front of people. So after a year, I sort of told Steve, and Shop Called Quest actually reached out to us about things. We didn't even initiate it. They said, we love your pins. You guys we want you to produce our content. And we kind of looked at each other and we were like, oh, that's too much work. We don't want to produce another brand's content, but we'd be down to work with you guys. I said, why don't you come do a live taping at our thing? And of course, Steve and I don't just do stuff like half mass. I looked at Steve and was like, well, if we're going to do this right, we're going to like really do it up. So we rented cameras and did an exclusive pin and really promote it and
produced it the way we do, like for my day job. Like that's what we do. We not only are Alex and I, have trained and performed on stage, like, Alex has sold a cartoon. Alex has like filmed his own pilot legitly. I've worked behind the scenes producing television for many years when I was clearly going, I need to get off the stage and stop trying to not be funny.
And that shows. This isn't like your first rodeo. Like that production that you guys did for this episode was really well done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And it shows that you guys have the experience to pull something like that off.
Thank you.
Again.
Yeah,
again.
like Alex said, it was one of those things where it was like, how do we do this like differently? How do we do it to where it's, like Collider, like they're great. And I watch Collider almost every morning, movie talk, while I'm working out and stuff.
I watch it every day.
To me, that's the best stuff for me to watch because I'm not really a sports guy, and their movie version of Sports Center works for that. But Alex and I aren't that. You know what I mean? We're also not the wrestling schmodown thing. We're not really big. Right. Like we're not into like scooping, and we're not a major news source. Which I know you guys, it's what you guys are with and whatnot. And it was like, how do we do it and stay true to who we are, and also sort of be not stand out, but just do something different and be a different thing that's for the community as well.
And you guys landed on chewing like 40-year-old bubblegum.
Buddy, that's what you do when you don't know everything about Star Wars.
I mean, I think it's more a matter of like when we and this kind of all plays into, and Lacey can speak to it because she was at the event. Like if you looked out at the audience, there were all kinds of people there, right? It was like it was awesome. Yeah.
It was a ton of different people. And I think I told these guys this when I got back from it, the first show I did. It was probably the coolest Star Wars event I've ever been to in the sense that I felt uncool. It was like the hippest people, but it was like, it was really, really fun.
I'm on stage. It's not the hippest people.
That's the pins. That's just the pins. Like everyone was in denim jackets with patches and pins because I
showed up like really sweaty from working the LA classic auto show, and I was like, hey guys, this is like a real thing. And there were like studio lights and everything. It was
you saw the
really,
sign that
really
was
like all these denim jackets with like pins, and it's like a biker rally, but it's Star Wars pins on denim jackets instead of patches.
They were all drinking Pabst Blue Ribbon. I was like,
yeah, well, the
I
event
feel
was,
like I'm in Brooklyn.
You know, the guys from Shop got it sponsored by Pabst, which was really cool. Like, I'm not a big beer drinker, but like in LA, if you're sponsored by Pabst, like you're doing something right. Like that's very much the style out here. And I think like to sort of speak to what Steve was saying a little bit about like what we wanted the show to be like, Steve and I have a good working relationship in the sense that like I go to Steve with really crazy ideas and Steve helps us execute it in a way that really makes that professional quality pop off. Like when we decided to do that live show, I wanted you to have the feeling of what it's like on set when we do our show, which is very silly and loose and fun, the energy of the audience. But then also I wanted people to look around and be like, oh, we're all into this same thing. Like we all buy these pins. We all watch this show. And that's my dream for our show.
Yeah.
Like my dream for this show is to be able to go to Chicago and be like Black Series Rebels live at this comic shop or this comedy theater. We're doing this exclusive pin and it's the same amount of people. It's always been about getting positivity in the Star Wars community into a room and celebrating it together. It's very hard to get to that place. So it was really, I know, fulfilling for me to see a line forming at like 3 PM of people trying to get this pin. And then,
yeah, that's crazy, man.
We had a guy that was like, am I good to get the pin? And I was like, oh man, like you'll be fine.
There was like a dude that showed up
like,
at 3:00 while we're like setting up and getting everything together because he wasn't able to get tickets online. And Alex and I were just like, bud, come when the show starts, like you trust me, you're gonna be just fine. Yeah. But you know, as someone who has performed and plays or on comedy stage for 25 years, like, and I said this kind of briefly sort of in our teaser thing for the show, you spend so much time like asking your friends and your parents and everyone to come to these community shows or these improv shows or what have you. And normally, for the most part, they're the only ones in the seats and the rest of the theater's empty. And so to then now do a show that not only like were there a lot of people there, but people paid to be there, but we also didn't have enough seats for like Alex's parents to sit down. Like we didn't have enough seats for our parents and friends that we invited to fill the seats because we thought for sure it wouldn't be. And that was a trip. And I think for Alex and I both, like 2 minutes before we went up on stage, we looked at each other and we're just like, this is like why are these people here? But at the same time, like this is rad. And this is exactly what we wanted it to be in terms of sort of a celebration of everything that we're all clearly into, but also doing it in a fun way where it's not just the panel. It's not just the San Diego Comic-Con panel of 5 people sitting at a folding table and talking really deeply about Star Wars. It's about having fun and playing silly games that we've made up about these characters and being able to also kind of laugh at this thing we love while simultaneously celebrating it.
This is why, like, we thought that the Resistance Expanded Universe area was the best spot for you guys to come on and talk about it, because that's what we have always done. In the same way that we want to find some cool artwork or find some a video that somebody made that's like a fan made trailer or something, and some of that stuff, because that's us reaching out to other Star Wars fans and saying the content you guys are creating is doubling up, is building more joy, Star Wars joy. So it's kind of like you create a picture, I enjoy the picture, you guys are creating a show, you're doing a live thing, and all those fans are like eating that up, and at the root of it, you guys are your own fans. We're celebrating you as fans doing what you're doing, and you know, kind of paying like an homage to that. Like we're saying, thanks for being Black Series Rebels and doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean,
you know?
we
remember me.
I don't know
when
about
you get
that.
famous.
Thank you so
You
much.
guys and Lacey, I know. I don't know how much we could reveal about this. We could probably edit it out, but is working to get you guys other shows elsewhere. So you guys are looking to really expand this out to now that this one kicked ass and it really like you probably got your appetite going for more. Obviously, you're looking to do more of these.
I think that we're planning on doing. We're for sure going to do another one in LA first. So we'll do one more in LA, and then I know probably next stop is Northern California. So we'll probably go up there because that's where Steve and I are from. So again, it's a nice, safe,
like Sacramento,
San Francisco,
like San Francisco, Oakland,
San Francisco,
San Jose,
gotcha.
like that. Like the Bay Area was where we're both from. So
Mhm.
it's a nice, easy extension. We have the safety net. We can fill it with family if we need to, family and friends. I don't think we'll have to, but I think that's the
That
idea.
Lucasfilm office is up there.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little easier to get some folks from like the Maker's office to come over and maybe talk to us on stage. And I think too, like sort of the goal specifically with this first live show was to do exactly what you just said, which is it's not that serious. This should be fun. Everybody should feel comfortable. And like I knew we were onto something when like people were laughing at George Lucas, knowing that it was from a place of love. We are not like we would never mock this, but we will absolutely have fun with it.
Remember, what did Jen Marie say to you when she saw George Lumen in the background before the show started? And
She got really nervous.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah. She was like, oh my gosh, are they going to make fun of the prequels for the whole thing? And I'm like, no, we're going to play games about Sio Bibble. Like we're going to celebrate all the great things that Star Wars
George
brings to us.
was my favorite part.
So George and I actually George and I worked at
I
Second
love
City
George.
together. He's a very funny guy. Him and I actually used to do a show for Nerdist where we would just we would play these two characters that sort of had this strange romantic relationship where they would review stock photography. So that's what it was. We would pop up like a picture of like a coffee mug that would say like "Have a great day." And we would talk for like 45 minutes about that one mug. And it was like weird, but
He complimented you guys really, really well.
Well,
yeah,
George is coming with us if we go elsewhere.
So George would be a live show staple. So if you come see us live, George will be there. Or we've talked about him being like the Rancor Keeper. We might have him switch it up to where he'll play like different, funny, obscure things from Star Wars.
It's always these characters, but it's always the same guy.
Because the original bit was just to have him sit in the audience and pout.
Mm-hmm.
That was the original. Like he wasn't even going to be on
noodles.
stage.
No, I loved him as like he's like that DJ on Ellen or like
he's
the Andy Richter. On,
he's Paul
Conan.
Schaefer.
He's Paul Schaefer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, except Paul Schaefer is the one that I. That
and
I
it's
was
like,
going
of
to,
course, like George has the spare time. Of course, he comes down to downtown LA and he's like, "I'll be the side. I'll be like the little off to the side commentary on the thing that I created." It like makes no sense.
It was more than that though. It wasn't just the joking too. It was everything. It was the wig. It was the outfit. It was the tone of voice he used that was like very up here.
We call it
that tone of voice, and then the computer that had like the old school Mac computer thing.
Yeah, we call it. What do we call it? George gear? Is that what we call it?
George Wear. George Wear by George.
George Wear. George gear. George Wear by George. Like George now has like his own clothing company that's like ill-fitting flannels, like light wash jeans
White
and big
New Balance.
white New Balances.
It was just so perfect. But more than that, the reason that I've been following you guys for so long is that you definitely make things fun. And I feel like oftentimes, and we talked about it tonight, this fandom gets so serious sometimes.
Brutal.
And I'm like, the one time, I forget when it was, but some girl was going after Rian Johnson, and he was just like, you're complaining about a movie where a guy is half robot. And he's like, you know what I mean? Like, people take things way too seriously. And from day one, when I followed you way in the beginning, you guys have always just made it so fun.
Yeah.
And never too serious.
Well, thank you.
Doing
very
it.
much.
You guys don't know how much we appreciate it.
Yeah, it really does mean a lot to us. And you guys, again, have been, since day one, very welcoming and accepting of us. And
likewise to you guys. You guys support us too. So
just, been really great.
We got to wrap it up. We, us East Coasters, man, it's almost the Friday.
I hear you. Well, real quick, I do want to just say to you guys real quick also, thank you very much for my first time being on the Resistance broadcast and to have it be a double feature here. I'm just want to let you guys know it's been awesome and thank you again.
Yeah, it's been great.
I want to, on behalf of the Resistance broadcast, thank you guys, the Black Series Rebels, for getting super sweaty with us. You were here Monday. You're back here tonight. Thank you so much. And we evidently all have a lot of love for Rian Johnson, as we went through in our discussion.
And Ryan,
we trust.
In terms of the social medias, where can our audience find you guys?
You guys can find Black Series Rebels at BLK Series Rebels on Twitter and Instagram. We call it Blook Series Rebels. And then you can find me at Alex_Bacchus on Twitter or at Alex Bacchus on Instagram.
And you can find me at Rex Manning. That's MANNING on Twitter and Instagram.
And if you get that reference, bonus points to you guys all out there. And thank you all for listening to our show. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Please take 5 seconds to rate us 5 stars on iTunes and like our videos on YouTube. Keep spreading the word. You are the reason that we are growing here at the Resistance Broadcast, so we thank you. Buy some of our swag. Head over to our store, tpublic.com/user/Resistance Broadcast, and grab a shirt, mug, poster, hoodie, whatever. We have 25 plus designs that James made, most of them, and it really is the best way to support our show. As always, go to StarWarsNewsNet.com for all your latest Star Wars news and information. James, where can people find you?
As always, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Myra Trunks, and always refreshing my YouTube app on Sunday nights. Looking forward to that Black Series Rebels episode.
Nice. Lacey, how about you? Where are you at?
You can find me on Twitter at Lacey Gillerin. Probably talking about Star Wars or retweeting shirtless pictures of Kylo Ren. You know, the usual.
That is the usual. That's your usual outro. You guys can find me on Twitter looking for pictures of Kylo Ren with a shirt on at Johnny Hoey and writing over at StarWarsNewsNet.com. Thanks again for being a part of the Resistance, and we will see you Monday morning right here on the Resistance Broadcast.
Fuck the prequels.
Yeah. There it is.
Raylo.
I know James is not a big swear guy, but let's pop that in the opener.
Oh, sorry. You can cut that out. Raylo.
They left my F-bomb in the last one.
Shirts off.
You guys left it in.
Yeah, I mean that's
I don't.
He does,
When
just
I said,
he's
"Mother
not a
effing
swear himself
Kylo
doesn't mean
Ren."
he's gonna censor the world.
I apologize, guys. I have a potty mouth.